Am I the asshole for telling my roommate to go back to her room when my friends come over? I, 20 female, have lived with my roommate Sarah, 21 female, for the past 8 months. Sarah and I were friends for a couple of years before we decided to move in together, and up until last night, we've had very few issues. Our house is a common hangout spot for our friends, and that's never been a problem. We just let each other know if we're having people over. A few days ago, a couple of friends and I made plans to have a board game night at my house. I informed Sarah about it, and she said it would be fine. When I got home from class yesterday, I saw that Sarah was studying at the kitchen table, right next to the living room where we would be hanging out. I reminded her about the game night, and she acknowledged it. About an hour later, my friends arrived. We put on some light music and started playing. As time passed, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that Sarah seemed annoyed. She was sighing and muttering under her breath. I assumed she was just frustrated with her schoolwork, so I didn't pay much attention to it. After a while, my friends stepped outside to smoke, leaving just the two of us. Sarah then told me that the noise was distracting her and asked if we could keep it down while she was trying to study. This surprised me because I didn't think we were being loud. We were speaking at a normal volume, and the music was soft. I explained that I didn't think we were being unreasonable, especially since I had already given her a heads up about the game night. I also suggested that if she needed a quieter environment, she could study in her room. Sarah responded by saying that she shouldn't have to go to her room since she had been there first, and suggested that we move the game into my room instead. I told her that common areas are meant for socializing, and if someone chooses to study there, they may have to deal with some noise. I added that it didn't seem fair for all of us to move the game into my room just because she wanted to study in a shared space. Sarah then questioned when I started making rules about where she could and couldn't be in the house. I clarified that I wasn't trying to control where she could be, but that shared spaces naturally come with other people being around. At that point, Sarah said she would just leave things as they were, then picked up her laptop and went to her room. My friends came back in, and we finished the game. I didn't see her again that night. I assumed things would be fine by morning, but that wasn't the case. When I went into the kitchen to make breakfast, Sarah was already there. She made a sarcastic remark asking if she was even allowed to be there now, since I apparently make all the rules. I tried to explain that that wasn't what I meant, but she didn't respond, and instead took her coffee and went back to her room. She hasn't spoken to me since. I don't think I was being unreasonable, but she seems really upset. So, am I the asshole in this situation?
Okay, so let's actually talk about this. Because this situation, it's not just about noise, it's about shared living, boundaries, and honestly, a little bit of entitlement. First of all, a living room is a shared space. Let's be real. It's not a library. It's not a study hall. It's literally the place designed for people, noise, interaction. So expecting library level silence in a living room, that already feels a little unrealistic. And here's the thing. If you choose to study in a shared space, you're also choosing everything that comes with it, which includes people talking, music playing, friends coming over. So if you want complete silence, your bedroom exists for a reason. That's like the most logical solution. Now, let's talk about something even more important. She was informed in advance. She knew there was going to be a game night. She said it was fine. She agreed. So at that point, you had all the information, which means you had the chance to plan around it. Study earlier. Go to your room. Use headphones, literally anything, but you didn't. And then later, you're asking everyone else to adjust. That's where it starts feeling a little unfair because you can't say yes beforehand and then complain later when the exact thing you agreed to happens. That just doesn't make sense. Now, here's where it gets interesting. It's one person studying versus multiple people socializing. So the real question is, who should move? Should one person control the entire vibe of the house? Or should the majority be allowed to use a shared space the way it's meant to be used? Because if one person's studying gets priority every time, then what even is a shared space anymore? At that point, it's just whoever gets there first wins, which actually brings us to her argument. She said she was there first. Okay, but does that actually matter? Like, genuinely, does being there first give you ownership of a shared space? Because if that's the rule, then whoever sits in the living room first every day can just claim it. No one else can watch TV, talk, have friends over. That doesn't sound like shared living. That sounds like silent competition. But here's the problem. The function of the space matters more than who got there first. A kitchen is for cooking. A living room is for socializing. A bedroom is for quiet and privacy. These aren't random rules. They exist for a reason. So if you choose to study in the kitchen or living room, you are stepping into a space that is not designed for silence. And that's fine. But you cannot expect everyone else to adjust to your personal choice. Now, let's talk about something people ignore: delivery, tone. Because listen, what was said wasn't wrong at all, but how it was said, that's where things get messy. Because you can go to your room, can feel very different from, hey, your room might be quieter. Same idea, very different energy. And when emotions are already involved, tone becomes everything. And that brings us to the next morning, because that was not about the kitchen. Let's be real. Oh, am I allowed to be here? That's not a question. That's a statement. That's sarcasm. That's unresolved tension. That's hurt. Dressed up as attitude. Because in her mind, she probably felt pushed out, dismissed, not considered, maybe even embarrassed. And instead of saying that directly, it came out as passive aggression, which, let's be honest, is the foundation of every roommate conflict ever. But let's strip all the emotion away for a second. Let's just look at the facts. There was prior notice, there was agreement, there was reasonable noise, there was a shared space being used normally. So expecting everyone to relocate because one person decided to study there, yeah, that's where it stops making sense. Now, does that mean she's a bad person? No. Does that mean you handled everything perfectly? Also no. This is just one of those situations where one person was logical and the other person was emotional, and both felt right. But I want to know something, because this is where it gets interesting. If you were in that situation, what would you do? Would you move to your room, or would you expect everyone else to adjust? And be honest, does being there first actually give you control, or are shared spaces truly shared? Because I already know this is going to divide people. So yeah, I need to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to Oh the Tea with your girl Tia. New tea drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so don't miss out. And listen, I need your opinions, so go comment below because I need to hear your thoughts. See you next time.